A long, long time ago, when we were all better looking and had more hair, well, I don't know about you, but I certainly did, Skoda decided to make an RS version of the really successful Octavia. And let's just clear it up. It is RS, not VRS, because once upon a time, a company with a blue oval badge had the RS name, and Skoda were a little bit worried that they might upset some people, but that was only in the UK. So in Ireland, it is an Octavia RS. What did they do with it? Well, they put the 1.8 turbo engine, the 180 brake horsepower version. If you had a Golf GTI at the time, that was the one with the red eye, and they put it into the first generation of this groundbreaking for Skoda car. The Octavia is still their most important vehicle. They're the one they've sold the most of, the one that has the title of all the car you'd ever need, long before the Skoda Superb had it. So let's just step back in time today here in the Isle of Man, where it's quite misty, quite foggy, quite rainy. Just have a little look around. Do you remember the green calipers, the way the lower bumper was split with the black plastic moulding also along the side? Don't worry, I'll bring you the inside in just a moment. I can confirm it smells like old crayons. And then Skoda are obviously famous for their practicality, their boot space and all that stuff. And one thing this car has in common with even the present day new version of the RS, which has 265 brake horsepower, almost 100 brake horsepower more than this baby, you still got a gigantic boot. That part has not changed. So yes, there's a few more gadgets in the modern cars today, but stepping into this thing was like a little trip back in memory lane today, and I can confirm it's possibly even better than ever. As I often say on the channel, these cars, from my experience, weren't appreciated enough until you get into your 40s and you need space for these boots and you have kids and dogs and life gets a little bit more predictable. And then you get in something like this and you have a blast. At the time, I was never really a huge fan of the black and white interior with the seats, and to be honest with you, I don't know if I still am. And what about that lovely white carpet that you just knew your mates were going to get in the back of and put cigarette burn stains and fake tan stains and all those things that went with growing up. Let's talk about the cassette player, because yes, there is a cassette player in this car, the Skoda Auto Symphony manual 5-speed gearbox, a manual handbrake. Again, very similar steering wheel to what you would have got in the Golf GTI of the day. That was the Mark IV. Very similar needles. Where that got blue, we got green in the Octavia. And it's still, I mean, look, Skoda have done a little bit of painting and decorating the inside of this car. The key is brand new, the fob, but it still stands up well. The materials are still very solid. There is no rattle in this car, and it does make you just long for those days again. These seats are wonderfully comfortable. Remember, this is a car that went into production back in 2001. How different life was back then. Even the key is a bit of a trip down memory lane for those of you that remember and had these kind of fob keys, the little flick out version that Volkswagen Group put into their cars. So I'd forgotten that little characteristic of the 1.8 VW. Well, Skoda had it first, some would say. Engine, 5-speed manual, no cameras, push down to select reverse. You do get a beep to signify you put it in reverse, but that is about it. These cars are obviously front wheel drive. Straight away you just notice it requires more work, more winding up than obviously a modern version of the RS, which has 265 brake horsepower on tap. A lovely fun fact today, more of a nod, a doff of the cap to the legend. The Wi-Fi at the stopover for coffee today, the password was Joey Dunlop 1. And everyone was just like, that's class, that's such a nice touch. So it's light on the steering, there's good levels of feedback. It's not like the heavier set steering racks of today's cars that do offer still potentially nice levels of feedback, but just are telling you you're crossing a lane and you're getting too close to the edge of something else. So it's still very quiet. There's a bit of tire noise. You can feel the cabin is definitely less insulated than a modern car by today's standards would be. But you drop into third gear and that 1.8 turbo comes alive. And I remember I loved summer days. We'd have the window down, you'd hear the turbo spooling up. it's still there, the fun factor, just the sheer joy that driving cars like this brings to you. It reminds you of why you love cars, why you got into this whole game in the first place. And for me, it's a lovely thing, because I've never actually unbelievably driven this first gen of an Octavia RS before, and there's no doubt I owe Skoda a huge amount of the success, if you want to call it that, of my channel when it comes to subscribers and views. Some of the biggest, most watched videos I've made are of Skoda cars, and no doubt some of the subscribers that I have on the channel are because some of the Skoda products that people watch. So I feel like they've helped me along the way. So it's lovely to see such an iconic car and get to drive it in this condition. It's absolutely mint. Drop it down to gear and we took into a corner, and the Mark IV Golf, it was an okay car when it came to handling. It was the car that got a little bit heavy, didn't get as much of a bad rep as the Mark III, but this with the boot, it just added a little bit of a nice overhang to the car, and put a bit of extra weight on it, and just to help balance it out a bit more. But it's just, for only 180 brake horsepower, it is more than ample power. And all these memories are coming back to me now as well. You could rev these cars to 70 miles an hour, no problem, in second gear, and loads of torque from it. A little bit of understeer there. There is no doubt, and the new version of the RS has an e-diff to help correct that. But again, just the lovely basic nature of this car. And look, it's still a modern car by lots of standards, climate control, and we have the CD changer in the boot. I know that sounds kind of retro, but at the same time, it was fancy in its day. I think certainly now you'd love a sixth gear just to keep the engine ticking over when you're not driving this car on these kind of roads and you just want to cruise along a motorway. But certainly the smile factor is very much still here. And just the lovely little levels of feedback through the steering. It's still very, very light though, again, by today's standards. I just want you to push on though, I want you to rev it on. I remember getting my GTI remapped as well, and that pushed the power up considerably and the torque considerably. But looking back now, I think this car is absolutely fine with it. And there's still a car that the Octavia RS, you see it in the road, it catches your eye, it stands out. But I can only imagine how much attention back in Ireland a mint one of these would get from those who know. Pure joy. What an experience. I feel very, very lucky to have a little blast in this car today. Brilliant, brilliant. Forgotten how light these cars are, how good the steering feels, how much they like to be revved. I forgot these cars drove easily to 70 miles an hour in second gear. Not that I tried it, but there was one memory that came back. I was like, hang on a second. Really good, really, really good. Back when this car would have been a bit more frequent on Irish roads, I had a Golf GTI which was 27,000 punts from new. And from memory, this car was a little bit more expensive, which at the time had people's heads a little bit scratching, going, but a Golf is cheaper than a Skoda. Now, all these years on, it's not really a point anymore, because everyone goes, yeah, but Skoda are possibly even better. So anyway, a lovely blast back in time. A sad reminder of, I think, how good we had it back then. We didn't have 2.5 ton electric SUVs. We just had fun, fast cars that offered a load of practicality. And if you do get a chance to pick one of these up second hand, I would do it now, because the values of these cars is only going to go one way. Thanks for watching. Talk to you in the next one.